Satire is and always has been an integral part of comedy, and it has an illustrious history. From movies like Blazing Saddles and Tropic Thunder, books like Don Quixote, and web pages like The Onion and Clickhole. Good satire has been used to critique everything from racism to faults in our government, and has created some of the most memorable and funniest pieces of media in the history of comedy. Bad satire, however. Bad satire is like when your youth pastor looks around the room and goes, "You know who's not an imposter among us? Jesus." Speaking of unfunny Christians, let's talk about the Babylon Bee. The Babylon Bee was launched March 1st of 2016 by its creator, Adam Ford. Its early articles focused on issues and funny trends within the church, from mocking the health and wealth theology of people like Jan Crouch on the day of her death, and Joel Osteen during the Houston floods, to some goofy shit within worship music culture, which I talked about in another video. It should also be noted that a lot of early Bee articles were fact-checked over by the geniuses at Snopes, which I would love to make fun of. But apparently, according to some research done by The Conversation, a staggering amount of people could not figure out that Joel Osteen sails yacht through flooded Houston to pass out copies of Your Best Life Now was perhaps a joke and not a factual piece of news. Now, I know this video is mostly about how bad the Bee has gotten and the man responsible, but it would be disingenuous of me to not give props to its early days for, at best, being good satire, and at its worst, just a bit cringy. Articles like "Psychopathic Megalomaniac Somehow Garnering the Evangelical Vote," to "Worship Leader Who Reads Music Arrested on Suspicion of Witchcraft." Like, this shit was well written and was taking shots at church culture and the insanity of the conservative right during the 2016 election. Whether or not all of the writers, all the way up to Adam Ford himself, were devoid of shitty political takes has yet to be decided. But all that really matters to me when you're talking about a satirical publication is it funny? And it was. I think that's what makes the story of the Bee so sad. To watch something fall off that hard is brutal to watch. In 2018, the site was sold to Seth Dillon, who is described as a successful businessman who uses his resources for kingdom purposes. And since 2018, the Bee has had a distinctly more conservative voice and been the butt of the joke by most people in comedy because of how truly abysmal it has gotten. So let's take a look. In 2016, I was at Liberty University, and me and all my friends were pretty much in the same boat of constantly cracking jokes about the goofy shit we saw in the church and our more serious issues with it. It was during this time that the Babylon Bee launched, and me and my friends all loved it. We would constantly share articles with each other in our group chat. We would ask each other, "Hey, did you see the new Babylon Bee article?" We really enjoyed the articles the Bee was putting out because they were funny. It was poking fun at a lot of the shit we had grown up around and had come to kind of despise. It was cathartic to have a more mainstream comedy site talk about a lot of the inner angst that we had gotten over the years. I can't remember specifically when I stopped seeing Babylon Bee articles and when I just stopped paying attention, but I think it was around 2018, and that's when it was sold to Seth Dillon. But, I mean, after that, I pretty much stopped seeing things from them altogether. Until 2020, when, much to my surprise, somebody clowned one of their articles on Twitter. Now, this caught me off guard because normally my two worlds don't really collide like that. I'm not used to seeing my bubble of Christian inside jokes end up on the main stage of Twitter. And I remember reading the article and going, damn, that's really bad. And this happened like 2 or 3 other times over the course of several months, and each time the article somehow got worse. It was being mentioned by me and my friends from college in our group chat, and we were all kind of wondering the same thing. Has the Babylon Bee always been this bad, and our humor and political compass just changed? Or did something actually happen and it just nosedived into the world of conservative Christian dogma. Now, at the time, none of us knew that the Babylon Bee had been sold to somebody else. But for the sake of the video, let's take a look at some articles starting back in 2016, and let's see if we see any obvious changes in comedic quality. Man recommits life to Christ just to put altar call out of its misery. New survey finds 92% of evangelicals would have supported Genghis Khan. Local man's drinking problem still successfully disguised as craft beer hobby. The Newsboys Aren't Dead 2 set for April premiere. So those were a couple from 2016. Let's jump to 2019, right after the bee was sold. Bernie Sanders, if elected, I will put AOC in charge of math. I'm not even sure what that one's supposed to mean. Millennial wishes there were some historical examples of socialism we could study to have some idea how it might turn out. That's a new one. Church bulletin clearly designed in Microsoft Paint. That one's not terrible. A good one. That's not a bad one. Beto proposes renaming first 10 amendments the Bill of Wrongs. Fucking hell, man. I cannot wait to see what 2021 has for us. So let's jump to current day. George Washington to be replaced on Mount Rushmore by George Floyd. Daredevil accused of being a racist since he can't see skin color. Uh-oh. Athlete so oppressed by America that she's representing America in the Olympics. Sick. Kids in cages disguise themselves as BLM rioters in hopes of Kamala freeing them. Army introduces new gender reveal grenades for trans soldiers. Okay, I'm gonna throw a bunch up here, and we might have a little montage, but the Babylon Bee and their trans jokes, there's a lot of them, and they're pretty much all the exact same thing. None of them are funny or even slightly witty, so let's go ahead and see some of them. So it's gotten bad. So you guys kind of got a little taste of this segment already, but I can't let it go at just a lightning round reaction segment. We need to talk about this more. I don't know who is writing over at the Babylon Bee these days, but not only are they cranking out the 3 same jokes all the time, but none of them are even remotely funny. Trump, much like the Bee, was a shitty, dangerous individual who spread some truly fucked up ideologies. But at least he was funny. I mean, look at this shit. After becoming Senate Budget Committee Chair, Bernie Sanders quickly Googles, what is a budget? What does that mean? That Bernie wanting to divert funds to the middle and working class means he doesn't understand what a budget is? Do you know what our military budget is? Dr. Fauci takes group of school children hostage, demands stimulus bill as ransom. What is the joke? That Fauci wants to help Americans during an economic low during a pandemic? Does he have a history of taking hordes of children hostage? Only in America could a guy go, hey, people are struggling to survive during the pandemic. I think we should get money to the working class people of America. And because he is on the other side of the political spectrum, somebody is going to go,
fuck you, idiot. I don't want it. Get trolled, libtard.
Democrats offer compromise that unborn babies are 3/5 of a person.
Show me what it's like.
That is quite a take. And they've got about 1 million Biden is senile jokes. They have like 3 in a row articles of AOC being scared during the Capitol riots. And my God, they've done it. Sad. This Christian got offended by 100 different things today and nobody cares. That's you. You achieved satire. Holy shit. That is an astounding lack of awareness. In the middle of this unending desert of the worst comedy ever seen by man, a lone article resides, the best satire they've written in years, fully explaining how everybody feels about your page. Because you're right. Nobody cares. Well, except for a few people. A few people care about the Babylon Bee's existence. Elon Musk, for example. Elon Musk tweeted that he loves the Babylon Bee, that you know, the Onion had gone too far by making fun of him. And we all know that Elon Musk is the go-to guy for the dankest of memes and the best comedy. He was on SNL, you know? We all saw how that went.
What I have to say right now might be a little cringe.
Now, the name has been said a few times now, and I dare not repeat it because, frankly, I'm tired of doing that edit, but it's finally time to address the man responsible for this dumpster fire of satire. I can find no resources, no articles, nothing about who he is or who he was aside from the CEO of the Babylon Bee. What we do have are his Instagram, his Twitter, and a couple of podcast episodes and interviews with the wonderful people over at the Daily Wire. So buckle up as we dive into one of the most unfunny, egotistical people I have ever had the displeasure of doing research on, the current CEO of the Babylon Bee, Seth Dillon. God damn it. Let's start by looking at his Twitter. When my kids are playing a game, they always make up rules as they go to try and maintain an advantage. They're like miniature Democrats. It should also be noted that it is very obvious why the Bee is currently so obsessed with the topics of trans people and abortion, because that is all this motherfucker tweets about. If he isn't imploding at the thought of someone not feeling like they belong in the body they were born in, he's saying some shit like, I'd give up everything I've ever achieved in my career for my kids, and without a second's hesitation. There's no higher calling, no more rewarding venture than parenthood. To prove that pro-choicers are simply just selfish, and there totally isn't a massive problem with the foster care system and overpopulation of parentless children, or massive poverty among single parents. And to top it all off, he's anti-vax. Kids don't need a vaccine. Healthy young adults don't need it either. Seth, you seem to only have the brain capacity to maybe focus on one thing at a time, so I'll say this slowly. Vaccines help prevent the spread of diseases. It's not necessarily about the people who are healthy. It's so your 15-year-old son doesn't kill off your parents who are definitely more susceptible to it. I'm sorry, Seth. That was a big word. Your parents will die more easily than your kid will, Seth. Frankly, his Twitter is repetitive and boring, and I don't feel like spending too much time on it. But I think this last tweet really sums up this dude's lack of self-awareness. Jokes are funny because of their proximity to the truth, not their distance from it. His Instagram is pretty much just screenshots of Babylon Bee articles or news articles that he disagrees with, so he can absolutely dunk on them in front of all of his fans, and screenshots of his own tweets, because this man genuinely believes he is God's gift to comedy on the far right. Oh, and this article, to which G-Man responded, this could also be titled, What the Military Should Be versus What Biden is Trying to Turn It Into. God, I wish. All right, that's enough of his social media. It's time to dive into the meat and potatoes. We've seen him when he has time to think about what he's typing, but who is Seth when he's live and in front of a camera? Let's begin.
Just imagine being in Alabama and seeing a kangaroo hop past you.
Yeah, you lower your sweet tea. What in tarnation?
Like I said, buckle up. So the Bee Weekly podcast isn't hosted by Seth. It's hosted by Kyle Mann, who is the chief editor, and Ethan Nicole, who is the creative director at the Babylon Bee. And as you can tell, it is an absolute hoot. Chocked full of the best bits from the best and brightest comedic minds that the Christian right has to offer. I'll start talking more about Seth here in a little bit, but I had to talk about this bit they did in one of the podcast episodes. They did an in memoriam for things that were canceled, and here you go.
We also wanted to say goodbye this year to the bottom half of people's faces.
R.I.P. the bottom half of people's faces.
Aside from this clip making me roll my eyes so hard that I may never see again, the date they used is so fucking funny. They just had to make a creationism statement in the middle of their already terrible joke. Masks are bad, but did you also know that God created the world in 7 days? And that the earth is only 6,000 years old? Bet you didn't.
Mr. Potato Head, we'll miss your potato.
How is this not parody? And I know what you're going to say. It is, Andrew. It's in the description of the website. Wait, no. It's bad satire. Who the fuck cares? It's just big corporations virtue signaling to try and seem more progressive to people. The people cheering this behavior on are an extreme minority. We all know this already. The difference between me and you, Seth, is that I didn't make an entire in memoriam song about an anthropomorphic spud. Okay, here we finally have a true Seth moment in this bit they did on the podcast where Seth reads an interaction he had with someone sending him hate mail. And the absolute delusion exhibited by him and everybody in that podcast room, thinking that not only were his responses good, but on another level of comedy, is truly something to behold.
The views in your email disgust me. I will be unsubscribing.
Some people hate truth.
Some people don't know when to see a therapist and stop the delusions.
Some people think they're funny when they're not.
Some people don't care what the ignorant think.
Some people think insults are a substitute for arguments.
Some people, that would be you, talk out of their
Donkey.
Some people curse when they're losing.
Some people are just in a
Donkey.
Some people run out of things to say and just repeat themselves.
like yourself.
And finally, his interview with the Daily Wire discussing the Bee, its path to fame, and issues with big tech censorship.
And under your leadership over the last couple of years, it's really blown up. And I know that from seeing that from the outside and also a little bit from the inside.
Yes.
And
I take full credit for all the success, by the way. It's all me.
I think it's funny how they suck Seth off about the Bee's success and then constantly complain about him being censored, and not only in this interview, but on his social media. The dude will not shut the fuck up about constantly being censored, which we'll get to here soon. But really, all they did was cut out the niche of making fun of the church and shilled out for overused conservative talking points, where the only people who find that funny are old people and edgy teens.
Satire does. I mentioned a moment ago, we speak truth to culture, and we do that. We do have a positive message to share with people.
Yeah, dude, hating trans people, super dope and uplifting message. Keep that shit up, brother.
Everybody on the left thinks that we're not funny at all. They think that we're not funny at all because they think we make the same jokes over and over again. They're tired jokes, or they're not rooted in truth, but they just see reality differently than we do. And rather than being willing to laugh at jokes that they're the target of, they get offended by that.
Well, Seth, perhaps when you've made your 100th I identify as an attack helicopter joke, people are going to begin to call you out for making the same shitty joke over and over again. People don't find the Bee unfunny because they're offended. People find it unfunny because it's lazy, unclever dog shit. It's hard to be offended by a joke that any fifth grader worth their salt could come up with.
This is the latest in a string of misrepresentations that have come out of liberal media. CNN personalities Brian Stelter, Donnie O'Sullivan have both called us fake satire, that we bury the satire disclaimer somewhere deep in the sites that no one will understand that we're satire, so we can mislead people and get around Facebook's rules. And the purpose of this, what they're trying to do, is suggest that we are a source of misinformation, that we're deliberately misleading people so that they can get us removed from these social networks which are trying to clear out misinformation.
Okay, Seth, I agree that getting flagged for your satire articles is ridiculous. I think anybody can agree to that. But to deny that satire will always have a point, you said it yourself. Satire holds a light to an issue. And for many, the issue or point you are making with your satire is considered dangerous. So you're either playing dumb or are impressively stupid to think that Pelosi asks Omar to clarify ambiguous statement that we should kill the Jews isn't pushing any kind of narrative. So let's break it down together, Seth. What does this very funny, ha-ha satirical article mean? What's the truth you're speaking to the culture here? Nothing? Nobody could possibly take a message away from this that could maybe be harmful to the Muslim community in America? No? Or perhaps a very flawed view of the conflict happening between Israel and Palestine? No? Oh. Silly me. I forgot. I'm sorry, Seth. I forgot. It's just satire. It's just a joke. Right, Seth?
I think the big thing, the thing that really matters, take us out of the equation. There's just this concerted effort, and this is not like a conspiracy theory, but there is this, because there's evidence of it, there is this concerted effort on the part of liberal media and big tech to work together to stifle voices they don't like and to suppress views they don't like and to discredit opponents who aim at targets they don't like.
Well, Seth, I hate to hit you with the cold water here, but the issue you're experiencing isn't because of the libs. That, my boy, is unchecked capitalism at its finest, baby. You see, billionaires tend to do whatever they can to get richer. And when a culture starts to have a more progressive outlook on things, people who stand against that or use their platform to promote their shitty ideas, that's a bad look for billionaires. So they shut that shit down. I agree with you, Seth. I don't like some rich assholes being the arbiters of ideas and thought. Shitty or not, but you're the one who's got the free market's dick in his mouth, buddy. Because as I said, the free market's only interest is in making money. And it doesn't matter where you reside politically. If you hinder the flow of cash, you're expendable. Even Daddy Elon, yes, Papa Elon, who you for some reason still have as the header of your Twitter, if for some reason the bee got in the way of his money or hurt his image, he would cast you aside like week old pizza. I may have gotten a bit sidetracked here. I think it's honestly just really sad what happened to the Babylon Bee. To go from something that would occasionally hop in politics and make fun of everybody, something that understood or at least had some semblance of understanding of what satire was and how to make something funny out of a bad situation, to go from that to the 100th conservative shill site, it's sad, man. And to Kyle Mann, who's been with the Bee since the beginning, you may have always been like this, but to you specifically, I wanted to say, you're a sellout. I mean, I get it, dude. There's a lot more eyes on the Bee these days. You're probably making a lot more money than you were before. And of course, Father Elon likes your writing. What don't you have? I mean, there's not a shred of integrity or comedic value to be found in any of your writing, but I hope it was worth it. And to Seth, who constantly cites liberal comedy as being preachy or bad, I just wanted to tell you so you don't feel like I've targeted you for being a conservative Christian. If you guys were making the same jokes about Trump and Republicans, I would be making the same video, because you just be SNL. In your desire to take the Bee to the next level, you became the other side of the shitty comedic coin that SNL is on. Uninspired, lazy, and the greatest sin that a satire site can commit, unfunny. So here's to you, Seth. You've accomplished the thing you set out to do. The Bee is wildly successful in the demographic of people who thought this was good simply because it made fun of the libs. Congrats. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this, you'll probably like one of the ones that I'm going to link here. If you like those, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.